Good evening, everybody. Our beautiful audience here at Sports Today. My name is Ridhima Pathak, and it's been a great day. The IPL auction is done and dusted. And of course, there has been some big news, some interesting buys. Some people have gone really hard on shopping, and some people went a little stingy. So let me quickly take you through what really happened and what made news. The auction started with the former Rajasthan Royals skipper, Steve Smith, being sold to DC for 2.2. But the floor completely exploded when Glenn Maxwell was sold for a whopping 14.25 CR. Of course, RR broke the bank with Chris Morris 16.25, and K. Gotham was sold for 9.25 CR to Chennai Super Kings. I've got some beautiful guests out here who are joining me. We've got Deepdas Gupta and Rashi Gupta joining us. And there's plenty to discuss there, gentlemen. And we will clearly, let's just take a look at the squads and then break it down. But before we do that, can I just very quickly tell you that we need to make teams during the IPL on our Howzat app. So I'm just going to quickly give you a glimpse of how does the Howzat app work, and then we'll dive into the squads. So here is Howzat.
क्या आप भी किसी अपने सपने मेरे तुम्हारे टीम 11 पे टीम बना रहे हो और बच्चों के साथ खेल रहे हो? हमारे साथ खेलोगे? हाउज़ पे खेलो लेजेंड्स के साथ. हमें हरा और जीतो डबल कैश. Log on to howzat.com and win real cash.
So now that we know where we are supposed to play our IPL, having said that, let's quickly take a look at the Mumbai Indians, gentlemen, and I'll start with you, sir. Deep, sir. Mr. Tendulkar joins in out there in the Mumbai Indians squad. And what would be your playing 11 out there? Do I see that MI has backed their core, plenty of additions from the foreign players? They've got Fulton Isle there. Deep, sir, your take on the squad?
Sorry, their playing 11 is already settled, so they really didn't need too many players in the playing 11 per se. But I think what they have is they've strengthened their bench strength. Obviously, they had released all their most of their overseas fast bowlers, but they've got back Nathan Coulter-Nile for almost the price. They've also got another fast bowler in Adam Milne, who's express pace. He's someone who has the ability to bowl 145 clicks an hour. So I think they've only got, the squad has got better. And also, there are some really good names there. Good, exciting names. Marco Jansen is one of them. Yudhvir Charak, both coming on. They bought them on base prices, but it's interesting. And obviously they've got the experience Piyush Chawla in as well. Even though they had Rahul Chahar, but Piyush Chawla is someone, and I think Zahir, as in Zach mentioned it in the press conference, that he has the ability to bowl with the new ball. So they've kept their options open in terms of, selecting a playing 11. And I think it just got better.
Yeah, it does. And Marco Jansen, you made a very interesting point out there, because the man has not played not a lot of T20 and also not list A cricket. But having said that, Rajashri, we know that MI spends a lot of money on scouting. So definitely there is some brains to it as to why they scouted the players. They've given the kind of lead to, say, a Bumrah. And what do you think about this player, though? The reason why they went for a left-hander?
Look, you're right. They've always scouted players. They've given them that sort of establishment. And the Pandya brothers are very good examples of where the way Mumbai Indians look at future players. And I'm sure, even with his lack of T20 experience, the talent scouts would have kept track of some semblance of talent that the management saw. But it was also interesting to see Arjun Tendulkar right towards the end with his base price. Decent left arm pacer. Maybe make some noise with the bat as well. Maybe an overall package cricketer. And we were talking about it, weren't we, on the pre-auction show last evening, saying that this is the only Tendulkar who would ever get on an auction. So it was interesting to see the way that whole package was made around Mumbai Indians. And like Deep said, there was not much for Mumbai Indians to worry about, to fret over their lineup. They have their core, and the best thing is, if you look at the lineup, look at the squad, they have proper backup options for almost every position and every player. That's the reason Mumbai Indians have done so well.
No, absolutely. Moving on to the next one, which is RCB. Let's take a look at RCB squad. And also, we've got a Dan Christian there who's been at it at the age of 37. Along with that, a couple of names. Now, one thing, Deepsa, we know here that RCB, by hook or by crook, want to win the season. Is this the year? Deepsa?
Yeah, I mean, sorry. Every year it seems like this is going to be the year. I mean, last year they had a good side. I mean, this year too they have they have a good side. They have a good squad. It's just that people have to stand up and be counted. So if you look at that, you've got Glenn Maxwell, Dan Christian, Kylie Jamieson coming in, which is important because they've always been very top heavy. With and overtly dependent on Virat and ABD. But now you have someone like a Glenn Maxwell come in. I know he hasn't scored. I mean, he hasn't performed in IPL per se, except those 5-6 games in UAE way back in 2014-15, if I'm not wrong. But they have now people in the middle order, big names like Glenn Maxwell, to take that pressure off the top order. So you have Dan Christian, who again is more of an all-rounder, a batting all-rounder now, but he also has the ability to bowl in the death overs, which he used to do and still does in Big Bash at times. So I think that looks like a good squad. I mean, with Kyle Jamieson in an express bowler, somebody who can also bat as high as number 7 or number 8, can hit a long ball. So I mean, again, a side which is improved from what it was last season.
All right,
And
the
sorry,
side that is
addition to that actually was before the auction, which is Daniel Sams. I think Daniel Sams was traded from Delhi, so they have that left-arm seam option of Daniel Sams as well.
Yep. So I mean, if you take a look at RCB, they've of course spent a bomb on Glenn Maxwell. Like you very rightly mentioned, it's an interesting side. Definitely better than the last time. Do you reckon, Rajashri?
Look, Ridhima, we were just talking about Mumbai Indians before RCB, and I have always felt that RCB is on the other end of the spectrum when you look at teams like MI and CSK. Okay, he spent a bomb on Glenn Maxwell despite his very disappointing IPL performances, a middling season in the BBL, one would say. But where are the backup options? Okay, you're very, very reliant on Virat Kohli and AB de Villiers. You can also argue that when you have two players of that stature, you are entitled to rely on them to carry you through the season with the other players working around them. But where are the backup options for Virat Kohli? What are the backup options for AB de Villiers, Glenn Maxwell? I'm not saying that you have like-for-like replacement for the likes of Kohli and de Villiers. That's almost impossible. They're two of a kind. But Glenn Maxwell, again, I think a lot of teams have also probably struggled to utilize him well, because do you use him as a floater? Do you use him as a constant power hitter at number 4 or 5? What if he's if he's floundering in a couple of innings? Is he the kind of player who does, if he doesn't get off to a good start in a tournament, starts to fade away towards the end? And also, not just about Glenn Maxwell, you look at some of the key players who were part of the RCB core group. When they were released from RCB, they have tended to do well. So are RCB also using some of those key players well? Shane Watson is an example. When he went to Chennai Super Kings, Chris Gale was released by RCB, and look at what he did with Kings 11 Punjab. So there's a lot of things that RCB will have to look at, if this is going to be their core for the season.
Deepsa, but what do you think of this unit's Indian batting unit?
The Indian batting unit, listen, I think they'll be, again, dependent on Virat and ABD to a great extent, Maxwell, but there is Padikkal there. They actually have released quite a few Indian batting batsmen. But I think it's all right. I mean, they'll be, again, dependent on Maxwell in the middle order and Jamieson, Maxwell, Dan Christian in the middle order. But end of the day, the three that they would, I mean, again, you can't have more than 4. So it'll be interesting. So they have Padikkal and they have Joshua Philippe to open. But that's going to be an interesting call, the 4 overseas that they would want to have.
All right, so I'm actually looking forward to see what RCB can do this season. There has to be a jinx that needs to be broken in one of these IPLs for RCB for sure. All right. There was something very interesting with the CSK squad. So let's take a look at CSK squad. And Gautam Gambhir, I saw, said that CSK is best in the IPL auction so far. What do you think
Yeah,
about that? Do you think
yeah.
CSK did well, Deep sir?
I think they did very well. I think because what they also did was to get Robin Uthappa during the trading window. So now, if you look at that playing 11, that is said. You have Robin Uthappa to open, Rituraj to open, Suresh Raina is back, so he'll bat at 3, Ambati Raidu at 4, MSD at 5. Then you always have Faf du Plessis to bat there as well. You have Sab Karan, Ravinder Jadeja, Dwayne Bravo, and then obviously they picked up the two names that they've picked up. They did not have an off spinner. Bhaji did not play last season. They released him, so they've got two now. And Moeen Ali is someone who can bat in any position from 1 to 6, 1 to 7, and obviously you expect him to more often than not bowl his quota of 4 overs. So I think I think they've done really well. Their bowling unit was settled. Uh, they have obviously Chahar, Shardul, Hazelwood, Engidi. They have all those options. But also, I mean, now they also have Cheteshwar Pujara. I think he can also he might not start, but I think he'll play in the top three if if one of them don't fire. So yeah, but that looks like a really good side and a settled side. And CSK does not; they really don't change their playing 11 that much. Uh, so I think it's kind of set.
That is true. And in the last IPL, we were mentioning about how CSK need to change a couple of things, and we thought that there'd be a lot of changes. But actually, CSK has sort of retained the core, and that is how legacies are built, Rajashri. And what do you think of Moeen Ali? And of course, you keep the price of K. Gautam aside. K. Gautam and Moeen Ali under MS. How does that look to
Brilliant.
you?
Brilliant, right? MS Dhoni is someone who it's pretty common knowledge now. He likes to operate with the spinners. He likes to control. That's he feels he's able to control the game with his spinners. And Moeen Ali is he's an outstanding T20 all rounder that way. And he gave hints of his six hitting ability in that second test when England were anyway going down. So Moeen Ali is someone that MS Dhoni will bank on. So I was just looking at that list, and offhand, you could say that someone like Moeen Ali, someone like Sam Curran, Faf du Plessis, maybe three of these foreigners would be possible starters. Depending, obviously, we'll have to see where the IPL is played, which are the venues. It's not going to be the usual IPL. Whether it's going to be curtailed to about 3 or 4 venues, how many venues the IPL is played in. So a lot of those factors will determine the combination. But it's absolutely great to see two pretty good off spinners operating under MS Dhoni. And also Riddhiman Deep, there was a lot of memes going around on Twitter, and maybe Josh Hazelwood would probably want to recuse himself from bowling to Cheteshwar Pujara in the nets anymore. It's been a long Australian summer, hasn't it?
Yeah. Also, I saw both of the tweet about it, about Chennai's gesture of keeping Pujara. There were a lot of questions when we were talking about, when we were discussing Set 7 in our previous show. And Deep said there were questions upon what kind of time would Pujara get to play? Do you have an answer to that?
Well, like I said, I don't think he'd straight away fit into the playing 11. He might not. But obviously, when you're looking at Pujara, let's not forget he's got a 61 ball 100 in Syed Mushtaq Ali maybe a couple of years ago, if I'm not wrong. And and I think, because obviously, Rituraj had a great second half as an opener last season. Robin is a banker as far as IPL opening is concerned. But just in case, I think they have that option. Even Moeen Ali can open as well in T20. So I think they've got a few options there. Sam Curran has opened last season. But I guess that they look now that Suresh Raina is back and also Robin Uthappa in that side, it just looks a better side. Definitely better side.
Ridhiman, also to
Perfect.
add to what Deep said about Pujara, also just if you give me that 1 minute to allow,
Sure,
add to
sure,
what
sure.
Deep said, it is, a lot of people, it's a great gesture for CSK to bring Pujara in, but let us also not forget, Pujara has remodeled his shorter formats game over the last 3 or 4 years, in domestic competitions, because he wanted to play a couple of these formats, and he's remodeled his game. So when you look at the way he's played in Australia, soaking up those balls, they're part of a larger team strategy. That does not mean that a player of his stature, if he wants to, cannot really push it away in a T20 game. So you necessarily don't have to strike at 170, 180. You have a lot of CSK players who don't do that, but he comes in the middle order, gets you 30, 40 runs at 125, 130, solid batting. It's not that bad a buy if you look at it that way.
No, not at all. In fact, Chennai actually look like a team that they've got a couple of bases covered. Let's take a look at KKR, shall we? Kolkata Knight Riders. Interesting combination. Pat Cummins, Varun Chakravarti, Kuldeep Yadav. Uh, we are talking about bowlers. We don't know what the venue would be. But having said that, what do you make of that team, Deep?
I, listen, I mean, it's also settled side. It's just that last year people did not perform. I mean, the main guns, Sunil Narayan did all right. Andre Russell really didn't fire last season. Again, this year chances are it'll be held in India, maybe Mumbai, Pune. I mean, that's what people are talking about. So you expect Andre Russell to fire, but I think Shakib is a great addition to that squad. So is Ben Cutting. I think Ben Cutting is more of a backup for someone like an Andre Russell because he's struggled with injury issues of late. Yeah, I mean that looks like a good side. But the only thing I was expecting maybe a reinforcement as far as fast bowling is concerned. Uh, and experience is concerned, not just fast bowling, but experience fast bowling. You have Pat Cummins, but apart from that, lot of the others are very, very young and inexperienced, starting from a Prasidh Krishna to Sandeep Warrior or even Nagarkoti Mavi. Maybe I thought they could have gone for an experienced fast bowler, someone like an Umesh Yadav, because Umesh went on base price. They could have actually at least try to get someone like an Umesh. And I think Umesh has played for KKR before as well. But apart from that, yes, it looks like a pretty good side as well.
All right, Rajashri, your take on Kolkata Knight Riders also is the fact that you mentioned Umesh Yadav. I thought Umesh Yadav was a steal at this particular auction. He went for what, 1 CR? But having said
Yes.
that, KKR for you, Rajashri.
No, look, I agree with Deep. I was expecting KKR to, sort of pitch in for Umesh Yadav because there wasn't too many India pacers in this auction. And if you look at this squad, even if you're looking for experience, you have Pat Cummins and Lockie Ferguson, so that blocks up 2 foreign slots for you. And then you have Andre Russell, if he's fit. Shakib Al Hassan will, for me, is a definite starter. And you have Sunil Narayan. So and obviously on Morgan, the captain. So I thought that was a little strange from the Knight Riders, but again, they've rebuffed their batting lineup in terms of an experienced India batsman. But then you already have Shubman Gill maturing into a fine cricketer. Rahul Tripathi showed flashes of brilliance in the last season when he was promoted up the order. So overall, it's a packed, pretty experienced, pretty sorted lineup, especially in Indian conditions. Things did not go well for a lot of the teams in the Middle East the last time. But yeah, I'm a little taken aback with the fact that they did not push harder for someone like Umesh Yadav, who could have probably even been a steal at 3.5, 4 CR.
No, exactly. I mean, Umesh Yadav 1 CR was a little surprising. But one team that was not shy of spending money at all was Rajasthan Royals today. They, of course, went on a shopping spree, I would say slightly on the expensive side. But having said that, they let go of Robin Uthappa. Guys, happy for Mr. Dubey there, Deepta? Rajasthan Royal and Dubey is an interesting are you
Yeah,
happy for the Dubey?
yeah. I mean, because they kind of were struggling with the middle order, isn't it? I mean, especially Indians, you have someone like you, Rayan Parag, and all of them. But that middle order, I think Shivam brings to the table a couple of overs and can hit a long ball. So I think they've again a team that have strengthened their bench. Chris Morris is a really good buy. I know it went for quite a bit, but then end of the day, what he brings to the table is very unique and something that is not very easily available. Where you're talking about somebody who bowls all the tough overs, the first six, the death, and also somebody who can bat at number 7, can finish games with the bat as well. So I think they've actually again good buys because now the question is they have a test series right against New Zealand, if I'm not wrong, starting of June or something like that. So that is going to be interesting how they manage if their match winners like Josh Butler and Jofra Archer have to leave then. Even Ben Stokes, for that matter. So that'll be very, very interesting how they manage that.
All right. For you, Rajashri, we are looking at Rajasthan Royals and Chris Morris, probably the most expensive buy in the IPL history. There's something very interesting. The shifts that have happened, the dynamics of the IPL. That there was a time when batsmen used to go for very expensive prices. We got all rounders and bowlers being very expensive. Have they spent the money in the right direction?
Yes, you're right, Ridhima. The last 3 or 4 seasons, Ben Stokes' successive seasons turned out to be the most expensive of the auctions. Pat Cummins last season, Chris Morris this time. Look, I don't know whether it's going to prove value for money, but Rajasthan Royals have looked to invest that way in all rounders. Ben Stokes is an example. Chris Morris, can he give you a tearaway season? Can he give you value for money at 16.25 CR? He's never even played a full season. Look at his season last time for our team. 9 matches, 30 odd runs, 11 wickets. But also when they decided to let go of Steve Smith, you would have expected some more biffing up in the batting lineup. So maybe that's where Chris Morris adds heft with Ben Stokes. And remember, David Miller's form recently hasn't been the best. He's wanted to do better for South Africa as a senior batsman, but he didn't quite come off the way South Africa would have liked against Pakistan in that recently concluded T20I series. So, but overall, it looks like, a typically feisty RR team because you have the likes of Ben Stokes, Chris Morris, you have Jofra Archer in the bowling department, Shreyas Gopal, who's done very well in the IPL, Shivam Dube. Not surprised that teams would want to go for him in the middle order. But I'm a little, I'm in two minds, and I would like to get Deep's perspective on the fact that Chetan Sakaria got over 1.2 CR. Deep, that is the typical. That's the stereotype of an IPL auction like this, isn't it? With money left and with players coming in no particular order in different sets, teams would splurge, and there are certain inexplicable expenses.
Deep on Sakaria.
On Sakaria, I mean, listen, he's a consistent performer at the domestic level, a left-arm seamer. I guess it's just that he brings a different angle as in a left-arm seamer, and like I said, he's a consistent performer for the last 3 years, 2-3 years in the domestic circuit. But yeah, one of the things that they also had issue with was the Indian bowling unit. So that's where Sakaria also comes in, because obviously you had Jofra Archer, but then they struggled with Karthik Tyagi and Jofra Archer were the two fast bowlers, but then the third seamer was a bit of an issue. But now they have Chris Morris as a third bowler. You've got Shivam Dube, who can hit a long ball, bat at 6-7, and can give you a couple of overs. As a backup, you have someone like Mustafizur Rahman. I think they're all right. They're all right there. The only thing is, maybe, just maybe, an opening Indian batsman, just in case. They have Yashasvi Jaiswal, but yeah, they've been opening with Ben Stokes of late in the last season, and Ben Stokes, and so we'll see how it goes. But I think they're a better side than what they were last season. That's more important.
All right, so they made a move there. Let's take a look at how DC has improved the squad. DC made quite the noise in the last IPL. Let's take a look at who we've got. We've got a Tom Curran. We've got Umesh Yadav. Steve Smith comes to DC. Deep, sir.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a surprise as far as Smith is concerned, because he's someone who has to bat in the top 3, isn't it? So you have quite a few, people to choose from, or players to choose from, starting from, Ajinkya, Shikhar, Prithvi were already there, 3 of them. Steve Smith now, so 3 out of 4 would play, I'd reckon. Then obviously Stoinis opened. So that becomes a bit of a, top-heavy thing. But with again, Umesh is a good buy. Now, their biggest concern, as far as I see it, is there is a scheduled tour of Pakistan to South Africa, right? And if that goes through, then what happens? Then, because both Nokia and Rabada are obviously regular features in the South African side now across formats, so that becomes just a little bit of an issue if that happens. That is, but obviously, I mean, keeping in mind they've got someone like a Tom Curran as a replacement. Again, somebody can also bat at number 7, 8, can hit a long ball. Meriwala, again, he was really good this season, has been good in the last few seasons. Umesh Yadav is a steal. So I think they've kind of again bolstered their bench a bit. And also watch out for this all rounder Ripul Patel. He's from Gujarat, and he's really good. This kid is really good. I don't think is completely ready as yet. He's a work in progress, but I think he's a really good all rounder. Somebody who can bowl, steam up, and also bat and hit a long ball.
Interesting. So, I think there's something about DC because the comment section has just exploded, Rajashri, as the moment you mentioned DC, and just exactly the same concern that Deepso pointed out. We got a question by Devesh Mishra, and he's asking experts, what do you think? How can DC fit Ajinkya, Smith, and Shreyas in the same team, with all of them having similar brand of cricket?
No, so
Rajashri?
you look at the DC squad, and that's when you know that there is a good squad, it's a good lineup, because at one glimpse you can sort of more or less figure out the first start playing 11 that they might go with, and the fact that is the thing about the DC squad, that you have not like for like replacements. Again, you can't have that in a T20 squad, but you have great backups for more or less the vital positions. You have someone like Rahane, who's a solid middle order player who can, who can also come in as an opener. You have Steve Smith, who is solid, who can get quick runs, who can, he's with his shuffling across the wickets, he can rattle bowlers and sort of upset their lengths. And he's not had a great couple of seasons in the IPL, but he's a champion player. And you look at the all-rounders, you're very well covered with Vokes, Stoinis, Praveen Dubey. Deep mentioned, he was talking about the South African bowlers, but then that's where they've got good cover in Ishant Sharma, Umesh Yadav, Tom Curran. So you look at the 3 or 4 categories of the squad: batsmen, all-rounders, bowlers. It's nicely packed with experience and youth and proper international firepower there. So I think DC are very well covered.
DC looks good, but they missed an opportunity last time. Do you think do you think they have that enough push to take it all the way this time? Can they overcome MI?
I mean, they have the squad to do it. It's just that the question, as it mentioned, that it's very one-dimensional when it comes to the top 3, top 4. Actually,
Yeah.
Shreyas at 3 or 4. So it's like your big hitters are packed in the middle order and lower middle order, but you might need somebody to give that momentum in the initial overs. I mean, in that case, they might look at Marcus Stoinis up the order, like they did in a few games in the later half of the season last year, because Chris Vokes will also be available this season. Hopefully, he will be. So Chris Vokes can come in and bat at 7 and 8. So he'll be available. Uh, yeah, I mean, even Tom Curran, for that matter, if required, can do that same job. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, they'll have to sort out their top 3. They'll have to make sure that one of the top 3 uh, can really go hard at the top and provide that momentum.
Okay, all right. So that's DC. Very quickly, let's do up north and down south. Let's take a look at SRH, and then we'll go to Punjab. Last but not least, Punjab. But let's take a look at SRH. What has SRH done? Let's take a look at the squad. And does SRH look comfortable? The good thing about SRH, or the bad thing about SRH, is the fact that they don't go shopping, splurging on it. But do they look good for the starters, though?
I think they look good.
Deeper.
They did last season as well. But what I really liked was them picking up Kedar Jadhav, because one of the biggest issues last quite a few years has been the middle order and experience in the middle order batting. That's where Kedar comes in. I know he hasn't played a lot of cricket, and last season or so he was, kind of poor, if I may say so. But Mitchell Marsh is available this season. Hopefully, he will be. They have retained Jason Holder as well. But okay, I mean, the only their issue is they're so heavily dependent on their overseas. I think that's where Kedar, if he's in a decent form, will be very important. This year they'll also have Bhubaneswar hopefully fit, and he obviously played the Mushtaq Ali and will be playing Vijay Hazare. He'll be leading actually UP, and an extra addition of Mujibur Rahman. But it's not the overseas. The overseas they actually struggle to fit in. They actually have to leave someone like a Bairstow out last season. So overseas is not a problem for them. It's the Indian middle order, and I think that's where even Jagdish Suchit, I think, is a really good all rounder. Somebody who's a very very useful batsman, very smart, street smart bowler. So I think that again is a good. Good by Jagdish and Suchit, Jagdish Suchit and Kedar Jadhav, both of them.
Yeah. The Indian batting form for sure is a concern. Rajashri, what is your concern with SRH here? They've not
No,
gone splurging
exactly.
for sure.
Exactly. Look, I mean, if you look at the middle order, okay, you've had Riddhiman Saha, who opened with David Warner, gave you a couple of explosive innings. Manish Pandey, fine T20 batsman, fine short of form as a batsman, but again, he struggled for consistency. And you need a couple of really good Indian batsmen, whether capped cricketers, somebody who's been around for a while. I think do you feel that was a bit of a gamble there on Kedar Jadhav as far as the batting reinforcement is concerned? Not that you had a lot of options in this mini auction to suss out experienced capped India batsmen, but you think that's a bit of a gamble there, Deep, because you look at the all-rounders. Again, come to the Indian all-rounders: Abdul Samad, Vijay Shankar. Obviously, he's experienced enough. Abhishek Sharma again, youngster there. But that Indian batting looks, it's still to me looking a little dicey, and you have to then bank on the likes of Warner, Williamson, Bairstow, and Mitchell Marsh if he plays regularly, and then a lot on the bowlers where Rashid and Mujibur Rahman. That'll be good to see. But you think it was a bit of a gamble to go with Kedar Jadhav to biff up the batting lineup?
Deep sir?
Sorry, didn't get that.
No, I was
You
just
didn't.
asking you, Deep, whether given SRH's batting lineup, the India batting lineup, India batsmen in the middle order, did you think Kedar Jadhav was a bit of a gamble? Not that they had a lot of options to choose from in the Indian middle order in this
See,
auction, but
with SRH middle order batting, you see a lot of talent there. It's just that they needed experience, and I think Kedar Jadhav brings that experience to the table. Now, if you now m- uh, Mayank, Manish will bat at 3, Williamson at 4, Kedar at 5, and then you have Samad at 6. 7 could be Jason Holder / Mitch Marsh. It suddenly looks much better than what it was last season, right? At least when you look at those names on the paper, they definitely look better. So I think they needed experienced Indian batsmen in the middle order. I think that's what they've got with Kedar. I know it's a bit of a gamble, but I just hope he comes good.
Yep, Kedar, I remember with the CSK team did not gel along, but probably this is the team and this is his time to perform. And Sunrisers Hyderabad, would you say bases covered there, Deep sir, for SRH?
I think yes. I think so. I think so. I mean, because you have someone like a Vijay Shankar there, you have obviously Kedar now, so you have talent. I mean, I don't think they lack talent and potential there, but I think Kedar coming in. I know. I mean, listen, Kedar hasn't been at his best last couple of years, but then you have someone like Samad and a Jason Holder and a Rashid Khan who can hit a big ball, a long ball. So I just think Kedar's uh, role would be very defined. It's not about going there and getting runs at 150, 160 strike rate. It's basically more of an insurance policy because you have someone like a Kane Williamson there, you have a Warner there. So Kedar would add to that solidity, if I may say so. And also I think his role would be more, like I said, somebody to hold the innings together if there are early wickets.
All right, we've got plenty of questions on SRH, and one of them I'd like to take because we're sort of running out of time. Since we've taken a look and we were counting down the 11 there for SRH, so Deep, so this is for you. We've got Rajesh Mishra asking, who do you think is going to provide the firepower at six?
Uh, yeah, I mean, you have Samad. We saw what Samad can do. I mean, this season he's obviously more experienced. So Samad can do that. Jason Holder can do that. Uh, yeah, I mean, if you're looking as compared to some of the other teams, big names at six, someone like an Andre Russell coming in or a Pollard coming in, maybe they might not have that kind of a player. But I think listen, SRH also. I mean, if you look at their philosophy, they've always been a little bowling heavy side, a side which are very dependent kind of on their bowlers. Uh, I mean, now that Bhuvneshwar is back, Sandeep Sharma was brilliant, Natarajan was brilliant and has been brilliant. So I think obviously you have Rashid. So that's kind of sorted to a great extent. And yes, I mean you have decent enough firepower. Summer, Jason Holder / Mitchell Marsh, and I think the whole idea would be for SRH is to someone like David Warner or Kane Williamson to bat really deep in the innings.
Perfect. Very quickly, let's go up north, take a look at Punjab. Punjab got into a lot of baffling situations with a lot of teams today. Having said that, I would like to ask both my experts, what do you think was the most interesting buy for Punjab there? I'll start with you, Deep, sir.
Oh, I mean, there's quite a few of them, starting from Shahrukh to Moses Onrique to Chai Richardson, Riley Meredith. See, okay, let's look at what were their issues last season. One of the biggest issues was one, middle order, and secondly was death overs. So they've strengthened it. They've strengthened with Jai Richardson and Riley Meredith. They both were brilliant in the Big Bash. I know. I mean, it. There is no. I mean, guarantee that these guys on these surfaces will be good enough. But death overs, I think both of them were good. So you could expect them to be as good as they were in the BBL. Now, the middle order was an issue because top of the order, obviously, you have Mayank, you have KL Rahul, you have Puran, and you have Chris Gale, right? So those four are sorted. And then at five, that's where Shah Rukh Khan comes in. That's again a stock which is, I mean, which is scarce. Indian middle order batsman and somebody who can hit big. So that's where Shah Rukh Khan comes in. That's where also Moses Onrique comes in. And obviously their death bowling with Jai Richardson and Riley Meredith.
Yep, Rajshi, it does look like a team which was obviously watching BBL very closely, and there has been a bit of star from the BBL that they've added to the squad.
And teams are becoming smarter with every passing auction. Obviously T20 was a new phenomenon. Everybody was learning. And you can see that, like Deep said, he's covered it so well that, that they have obviously plugged those holes very nicely with Jai Richardson and Riley Meredith. And also Moises Hendricks, after they let go of Glenn Maxwell, they wanted another Australian, somebody, a bit of a power hitter who could give you those 2 or 3 overs. And that David Malan choice was obviously very interesting to, again, spruce up their top order. So you don't know whether Chris Gale is again going to play throughout the tournament. He has not for the last 2 or 3 years. So he's a very good addition in that sense with KL Rahul, Mayank Agarwal, David Malan, Nicholas Puran, Mandeep Singh probably, because, Shah Rukh Khan, if he's playing in the initial half, he'll have to sandwich between 2 really experienced cricketers. There was, a couple of interesting experienced cricketers to steer through that position. So you have someone like Deepak Hooda, who showed a lot of resilience with the bat as well in this last season. So I think they've been very smart. They have been very smart in this auction, and it'll be interesting to see how these players go in Indian conditions.
Perfect. I think with that, we've taken a look at all the teams. Very quickly, Deep, sir, what do you think has been the smartest move in the IPL and by which team, if you keep the money factor aside? Deep, are you there?
Yeah, sorry. I think Moin is a good buy. I also think Shakib is a good buy. Chris Morris definitely is, as you mentioned. Leave aside the finances or the commercial or the money side aside. I think even Chris Morris is a really good buy. Yeah, I think there've been some really good buys. I mean, even like we've mentioned right through this program that most of the franchises have identified their shortcomings last season and tried to plug them.
All right, Rajshri, it's the mini IPL auction, the mini auction as they call it. It's not the mega one. Yet seen some really expensive buys out there. What is the most shocking thing apart from Glenn Maxwell for you here?
What was most shocking about Glenn Maxwell? Everything. If you look at his numbers, look, there are several factors,
No,
right?
I said what was most shocking apart from Glenn Maxwell?
Shocking apart from Glenn Maxwell, I thought Steve Smith's price because he was a bit of a steal at that price. I wasn't expecting him to go into that 8 or 10 crore category because you have a lot of teams, most teams with their top order pretty well covered. I was kind of expecting. In fact, we brought this up yesterday. It will be interesting to see whether Steve Smith pairs up with Virat Kohli at RCB, and RCB made that initial bid before DC came in and took him away for 2.2. There wasn't much of a bidding war there really was. It just base price was 2 crore. So it was, but I would have been, I would have, since RCB made that bid, I would have wanted them to go and maybe fight a little more to cover up the top order. That's what they really wanted to, take off that pressure from Virat Kohli and Steve Smith. And also, I know Deep explained that Chris Morris logic very well, but I still think that, probably they would have 16.25 is way too much. And you know why it was more shocking for me was RCB let go of Chris Morris at 10 crore and they were almost going to snap him up for 9.75 if that bidding war did not stretch beyond that point. So certain auction calls, I know at the heat of the moment, maybe ego, maybe that desperation to get your slots filled with the players that you had in mind. But Chris Morris for me throughout that after 8 crore was a bit rattling for me.
No,
I
I
think
mean,
that was a very hilarious moment actually.
see that Chris
Yes,
Morris,
Rajshri.
that was a bad option. I mean, that was a bad call by RCB to let go of Chris Morris at 10. And we mentioned this on the show that, I mean, he's definitely going to go more than 10. In fact, you know what? I think we've got 4 out of the 5 right. The 5 top players that we mentioned. Jai Richardson was there, Kyle Jamieson was there, Chris Morris, and Maxwell. So I think we got 4 out of the 5 right there. I think the 5th player was Steve Smith that we mentioned.
Yeah. Chris Morris wouldn't be complaining. Imagine being sacked from your job for 10 crore and then you get back to a new job within a couple of months and 16 crore. Not bad. Not a bad day's work.
All right, gentlemen, very quickly, prediction time. Which team on paper looks like the biggest challenger to MI? I'm not even asking you.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair question
The
to
biggest
ask.
challenger to MI.
Fair question to ask,
Deep
but I
first.
think it's too soon. I think it's too soon. On paper, I know. I still think DC is good. RCB, if they can get it, I mean, can sort it out. I mean, because all the teams are looking good. I thought last season was going to be competitive. I think only CSK fell apart really early. But if you now look at CSK team, I mean, they look really good now. So I think again this season it's going to be extremely competitive. But again, MI, as you mentioned, which team will compete with MI is the question.
That's the question. What about you, Rajshri?
Very tough call. I remember doing this show with Deep and Pragyan, trying to figure out a combination of players from different teams that can take on MI. But it's a difficult question to answer, before, we've analyzed all these squads. But a lot of teams look very well balanced now at the end of the auction. But that's how they look every year after the auction. You look at the players, you look at the slots filled. But I think Chennai Super Kings, Punjab, they'll go back home very happy with the way they have filled up those slots with those balances and with those backup options. So it'll be a little tricky to answer that now. But I would think that CSK and Punjab would be among the teams that would sleep pretty well tonight if they look at their overall squads.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me. We've taken a look at the squads. It's going to be an interesting IPL season ahead. And of course, a couple of teams looking really good. I've got my eyes on CSK and also RR, especially with the kind of money they've splurged. So let's find out. We'll wait and watch who challenges MI the best. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thanks a lot, everybody, for joining us in sports today.